Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Coresight and Blue Yonder's Open for Business. Today's special guest is AlexGourlay. We'll now turn it over to Joanne Martin of Blue Yonder and Deborah Weinswig, CEO and co-founder of Coresight Research.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today to welcome to Open for Business. I'm your co-host, Deborah Weinswig, and I'm honored to be joined by my co-host, Joanne Martin, who is the VP of Retail at Blue Yonder. She has extensive strategic retail experience and a proven track record across apparel, footwear, and accessories, including L Brands, DSW, and Luxottica. In her role at Blue Yonder, she is the industry thought leader for retail, and her expertise also includes merchandise planning, item planning, assortment planning, allocation, and omni-channel inventory enablement. With that, I'll turn the call over to Joanne for some opening remarks.
Thanks, Deborah. I'm really excited to be here with you and Alec today. For those of you who don't know who Blue Yonder is, a very quick background. We are an end-to-end supply chain platform company. We are leveraging open APIs to allow our customers to extend our platform and our partners, and we work across manufacturing, retail, CPG, and 3PL as well. You know, we've been really focused on managing supply chain resilience and agility within the supply chain, leveraging the latest in technologies in AI and ML, helping customers to anticipate how to predict demand, how to drive visibility across their supply chain, and how to connect it. So really excited to be here as part of the conversation.
Thanks, Joanne. I'll introduce Alec. AlexGourlay is the Co-COO for Walgreens Boots Alliance. He is responsible for the oversight of both Walgreens and the Boots businesses, execution and transformation, as well as overseeing global operations. Previously, he served as president of Walgreens from December 14 to February 20, and prior to this, he served as EVP and president of customer experience and daily living for Walgreens. So he truly knows all things Walgreens. He is a board member at RELA and the World Business Chicago. He's a past chairman of the board of directors of the National Association of Chain Drugstores. And as a pharmacist himself, he has been very pivotal in driving thought leadership for NACDS. Today, we're going to discuss innovation in community pharmacy and healthcare delivery, innovation, customer behavior, and what the new normal might look like. As always, we'll have a video available on the site in 24 hours, and we'll launch poll questions after we start the call. Lastly, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen during our conversation if you'd like to ask questions. And with that, I'll kick off one to Alec. Alec, first, thank you so much for joining us. I would like to kick off with a fairly general question. Based on what you have experienced with Walgreens' global footprint, how important is the acceleration of digitalization and digitization at this point? And how do you think about investing in innovation right now?
Thanks, Deborah, and thanks very much for the invite. It's really good to be here. And it's I think it's the most obvious question to ask anyone involved with customers right now, because the acceleration has been incredible during this crisis. It doesn't matter what data you look at, whether it be data from a retailer, a manufacturer, or even from services like healthcare services, for example. The acceleration has been remarkable, and what's becoming really clear has been the sustained movement towards digitalization and app. And it really comes in two areas, I think. One, first of all, we're seeing more and more people reaching out to customers, not just through the television sets or the radio or printed press, but through the digital assets that they have or they can share with partners. We call it mass personalization, but really what it's about is making sure that you can get your message of care or your message of a new solution to customers much more directly, much more personally. And secondly, of course, people are concerned about coming into the physical world for all the obvious reasons. So to even get the most essential products like drugs, many people are now relying on direct supply chain routes. But they want to make sure it's secure, they want to make sure that it arrives in time, and they want to make sure it's the stuff that they ordered. And of course, that's been quite a challenge given the enormous acceleration in the use of digital and e-commerce and omni-channel in the last, since the start of the crisis, really this early part of March, I would suggest, from our knowledge in the USA. So it's a real acceleration, it's sustained, and the way that I've heard people describe it, inside our company, outside our company, it feels like almost 10 years of acceleration in 10 weeks, which is quite incredible when you think about that thought. Whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. It's 10 years and 10 weeks, but it's real and it's going to sustain, we believe.
So Alec, when you look at the impact that the pandemic has had to how your customers are behaving and how they're shopping, can you give us some insights into things and shifts in behavior that you've observed through Walgreens?
Yeah, I think we have seen people automatically pick up services that the Walgreens team have successfully put out at a real pace. I mean, the Walgreens team, I want to say, for anyone who's listening, I'm really proud of what the Walgreens team has done both physically and digitally and how they've reacted during this pandemic. We'll come back to that maybe later on, and I'm sure that every retailer who's been open, and even those who've had to adapt their model will say the same thing, but I'm hugely proud of the Walgreens team. But what we have done is we have put out additional services from being able to pick up your prescription and your essential products through the drive-through, all the way through to offering national home delivery, and of course offering access to healthcare information right through the crisis through both the Walgreens apps and channels, and also something called Find Care, which is more of a platform we've been developing in Walgreens and also at the group level for the last couple of years. So we've really had to focus in on how do customers want to reach us, and how do we want to reach customers, and putting new products really quickly in the marketplace. And they're not perfect, they're not seamless. The operation in the stores and the supply chain has been challenged, but people have really appreciated the availability, because they can speak to their favorite brand, or they can speak to their favorite pharmacy, or they can get advice, and the product delivered in a different way when they're generally concerned about their health, they're generally concerned about their family's health, and they don't want to be out in the same way they were before. So again, that's been the sort of shifts we've seen, and they've been big shifts. They've been, in famous digital language, they've been 10x shifts. They've not been, 10%. They've been 10x shifts in our experience from quite a low base, but real shifts in customer behavior.
How do you think you talk about this idea of, it's not perfect, it's not seamless, but do you think that as we're almost moving to a minimum viable product, right, in the drugstore industry, which I think, historically is wanted to have everything so perfect before they rolled something out, it does feel like there's this tremendous, very positive shift. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Culturally, it's been a really exciting period for us because Walgreens is an innovative company. You only have to think of what they did back with drive-through pharmacies when they recreated the drugstore model from the strip mall to drive-through, which became the benchmark, and that was done long before my day, but it was done, and it's innovation at the heart of Walgreens. And I would also suggest that at the heart of our main competitor, CVS, sure. But to see that innovation come through, and the dichotomy for any pharmacy or pharmacist is it's got to be right. I'm a pharmacist, man and boy, and you're trained and you're brought up to it's got to be right. When you're dealing with prescription medication, it has to be right. There's no room for error. So therefore, the culture is this dichotomy of real innovation, but getting it right. So your question is a great one. So when you go to minimum value propositions, MVPs, in the omni-channel, the digital world, a culture like Walgreens has got to really work that through to make it feel comfortable and to do it. And you could argue that it takes moments like these where the ability to get the right information, the right products in the right way to keep people safe creates that speed. But it's not been without its challenges, and it's not because we're a historical retailer or because we're an old drugstore. It's because of the care our people take to make sure that we get things right for our customers, particularly in the pharmacy area, that creates that tension. But the team have worked through it brilliantly, and I've got some stuff out there that isn't perfect but works. And of course, we're starting to now develop plans behind this that will underpin it, to make sure that we sustain it. As the customers are sustaining their behavior, we will sustain our behavior as well.
So Alec, when you think about coming into COVID, there were predictors that were along the way that helped you anticipate some of the reactions your customers would have had. So when you think about your response, which has been very strong, how many of those predictors do you think, first of all, what were they for you? And second of all, how many of those do you think will remain and influence your next steps coming out of COVID and how you approach your business?
It was a really interesting journey for Walgreens Boots Alliance because obviously we do have a partnership, for example, in China. We have 3 partnerships, but we have one with a pharmacy chain that's owned by Sinopharm called Guado. And it's a big partnership. It's one of the biggest, I think it's still the biggest by volume pharmacy chain in China. So we have a team who's active there. We're also active in the supply chain. We have a significant sourcing operation out of a combination of Hong Kong and also Beijing as well. So I think we got a good insight into what happened both in the drugstore, the drug supply chain, and also in the sourcing supply chain. But we were also on the back foot because this happened really quickly, and it was really quite hard to predict exactly how the population would react, how the government would react, and therefore what we had to do. But what was important to us was our principles. So we started off with, I go back to, it's got to be right, it's got to be safe, and we've got to find a way of getting the medication to people and essential supplies to people as and when they want to. And we've got to find a way of making our pharmacies safe. Because we knew a lot of people would want to still come to the pharmacy because they had a relationship with the pharmacist, and therefore they had to be safe. So we worked on the right things probably maybe a couple of weeks earlier than maybe other people did, because we saw this supply chain change of what was selling, what wasn't selling, the big uptake, and then the very fast decline as lockdown went into place in China. We saw that happening, and we did our best to react to it with the principles I described. But it wasn't easy. I don't think anyone can claim that this was comfortable. It was very uncomfortable. Principles were really important. We were underdeveloped in digital. There's others who had invested ahead of this. And of course, what drove us at the end of the day was we had some investment in digital. We had a good connection through a lot of downloaded apps. And we had, of course, the corners of America, the previous strategy, which was still very much intact. So we had the right assets, the right principles, and the right way of reaching customers. So we were able to utilize these assets in a different way and made decisions quickly. And again, I want to call it the operational team, led by Richard Ashworth, who did a brilliant job through this period and made sure that we used what we had to meet the principles and the desires of customers to have the right drug at the right time. And we did all we could to protect our people. That was, for all of us, the most worrying thing, was we were expecting our people to go into this unknown area, really, and we didn't always have, confidence as government policy changed, that we had all we needed to do that really, really well. But we did all we could, and our team really appreciated it. And within days, we had the right elements in place for our team members as well.
So Alec, one of the fun things I always think about from a Walgreens perspective is Red Nose Day.
Yep.
I'm very lucky in our office, they always hand them out. So, kind of looking forward to that in a different way this year. And can you talk about, I think that's just such a great example. And once again, it's a little bit more fun and light, but how that's changed significantly. So number one, can you talk about reimagining Red Nose Day? And number two, maybe just a little bit about kind of how it came together, but how important it is, and everyone should go out on this call and donate to Red Nose Day, because it does make a significant difference.
It does. So this is year 6 of our relationship, and we're very proud of it, because we took an idea, I guess, that was again a European idea. But the logic behind it at the very start was that we wanted to really release energy into Walgreens in a different way. When you're dealing with serious matters of health and illness, you've also got to look at the other side of life and say that people want to have fun. They want to be able to share experiences on the emotional side in the sort of the feel good products and the look good products, as well as the serious products that make you better. And I could not believe on year one how this really lit the whole Walgreens organization up. From the very start of it, it was the most incredible things happened organically in the culture of Walgreens. And people just took it to the communities with such energy, way beyond anything I'd seen before back in Europe. And it was just fantastic to see. And that carried on right through the whole of the next 5 years. The nose changed, the sponsors stood up more people got involved. The whole thing became from no recognition of the red nose and comic relief to 50%. And NBC, of course, our other partners, along with the Mars Group, who were the founding partners, to be honest. They brought the idea to us through their CEO. All of us became really proud of what we created. And last year was a record-breaking year. Last year we raised more money than ever, and we went through the $100 million bracket, and and $200 million for the whole event. And all of a sudden, of course, round about early March, it became clear that with social distancing, the last thing you wanted to share with anyone was a red nose, a physical red nose. It was pretty clear that the whole event was at risk. And of course, the whole panic, the feeling of fear around March meant that we had to completely pivot. And we asked ourselves questions like, should we do Red Nose Day this year? Should we just cancel it? But we got together and we said, no, the whole story of how humour, even in the most difficult situations, can lighten the load was this whole story of Red Nose Day. It was born out of that idea that in the most desperate situations, famine in Africa, during the 80s and 90s was where the whole idea was born from. That people want to be social, they want to have fun together. So how could we do it differently became the next exam question. And of course, we did it through the digital assets we had together with all of our partners. And we created the first ever really truly digital Red Nose Day. And the principles we said to people was, you have to act appropriately. You can't, people are losing their jobs, people are concerned about their health. So as we go into this big fun event in our stores, let's make sure that we behave appropriately. We go with the customer and the patients the way they want to go. And of course, the team have done a magnificent job. We haven't raised quite the same money as we raised in previous years, but we raised a lot more money than I ever thought we would raise. And the feeling around our company about being part of this event is stronger than ever. And of course, what the opportunity is next year, and everything's crossed, that we'll have the virus somehow under control by this time next year. If we don't, we don't, but I hope we do as a company, as a country, and as a world. Then we'll be able to mix the physical with the digital in some way and make the event even more important. So yeah, it's been a fantastic relationship, and it's been bigger than ever from an emotional point of view for the company this year. And more digital, only digital, I would say. In fact, in reality, only digital, really.
So Alec, kind of dovetailing on that concept of the physical merging with the digital that you were just speaking of, how do you see that impacting the role of the store and the pharmacist within the store and the community?
Yeah, no, we've been lucky enough to have someone called Vineet Mira join us, who's our head of global marketing for WBA, a great guy who comes with a very fresh perspective. And he coined this phrase with me in an early conversation. We had a conversation about that very question, and he used the word digital magic with human kindness. Digital magic with human kindness. I used to use the phrase, and I apologize to any of my colleagues from Amazon who's on the call. I said, you get a smile on a human being when you come into a physical store, like a Walgreens. I'd rather have that personally in some moments than having a smile in a box. That's fun. You can sing great songs and adverts, but it's a smile in a box. It's not a smile in a human being. So this idea of turning it into the digital magic to being as efficient as we possibly can be as a physical retailer in all different dimensions, but still having that human kindness, in our case, or the human touch in many physical retailers' cases, I think is where you start to answer that question. and being really clear how you can differentiate in that world of digital magic and human kindness. And the digital magic continues. It's great to see all the innovation, all the startup companies coming with different ways of giving different experiences to customers. And I think that's fantastic to put the customer at the heart of that experience. But I strongly believe, and I would say this as a pharmacist, that there are moments where people, for reasons beyond pharmacy, want to have a conversation with a human being about a product they want to buy, or a new look they want to have, or a new design, or maybe a new illness that unfortunately they've contracted. And I think that that's the magic of the interaction between physical and digital, and what the omnichannel world is really about.
So kind of taking that to another thought process, Alex, those of us in the analyst world always felt that there was the back end and the front end, right? And we analyzed it from a top line perspective, from a margin perspective. But it does seem that, you know, during the last 10 or 11 weeks that those relationships have changed, especially as the role of the pharmacist in the community has continued to be elevated. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're seeing and how you think that plays out in the future?
Yeah, I think from a customer point of view, they're on a mission, a shopping mission to get their drugs, or to find a new makeup, or to ask a question about a vitamin they've heard about. You know, so they're on different missions, and it's up to the customer to decide, when and how they want to shop. You know, the pharmacy or the drugstore. What we know to be true is that the absolute convenience and certainty of the drugstore means that people are prepared to disrupt that mission to talk about other things, as long as it's on their terms, and as long as there's real value in the conversation and value in the purchase. So we've always known that, and that was the physical drugstore that was built, I say, in the corners of America, started by Walgreens and then copied successfully by many others. I think that's just been translated into a new way of getting that same convenience and the same interruption on their terms, personalized marketing, and joining together the experience of physical and digital. So whether it's having your prescription delivered home, with essentials in the box, and sent home because you're locked at home and you don't want to come out, and you get everything you need from that experience, including your drugs, or whether it's driving through the drive-through and doing the same experience this way, or whether it's still coming in the pharmacy because you feel able to do it, or whether it's getting the digital communication sent to you as you approach the pharmacy because I'm telling you what's on deal for you today. I think the concept is still the same. The integration from a customer point of view is stronger and stronger, and it's more efficient than ever before. And I think that's what's really important in the model, is it becomes really efficient for the customer. And there's that spark of interaction, the human kindness where they want it, which allows them to check a purchase or check a new line or understand what the really best solution is for the condition they have or the gift they want to give to a loved one. It's an incredibly powerful concept, I think, from a customer point of view, but it's got to be delivered in a really efficient way. And we're not there yet. We're not there at Walgreens, but we're really committed to that journey. And it's not just a commercial commitment, because we know that the reimbursement pressure on pharmacies is unwielding at the moment, as the whole market has shifted to much more consolidation. It's a commitment to customers in terms of how they want to receive things from a modern day drugstore. And I think we're really committed to that journey, but we've a long way to go, but we're on that journey. And this period of acceleration is a critical period for Walgreens, as it is for many, many retailers at the moment.
Alec, when you look a little bit, and just to pivot to your workforce, and you've talked a lot about their response and how agile they've become, how has your communication with your workforce changed during this time?
A lot more digital, and again, I give a lot of credit, to the communication team and to the operations team led by Richard. They have adopted, a different methodology. We were quite lucky because we were working with Microsoft, and we had already got the platform called Teams, which is we use now, for all of our internal communication and to stores. Stores are able to use elements of Teams as well, and we had something else called Theatro, which is a voice app, which again got rolled out to the majority of our large pharmacies. So we'd already adopted quite a lot of digital technology and communications. So we had some platforms out there that allowed us to really think again, a bit like we did with Red Nose Day and other examples are given today. How do we use these platforms differently, and how do we speed up communication? Because that was really important. Should you be wearing a mask or not? What does that mean for us? How do we? All these were the early conversations, right into the next set of conversations about graduation. How do we make sure that we support families and the kids who go through university to make sure that we make the graduation as meaningful for them as we can. Using a photographic business, for example, all these were communications internally and externally that we sped up. And it's been really liberating, I think. Going back to, if Red Nose Day liberated us in a different way 6 years ago, in a physical way, then using digital communications and trusting people with communications in a different way has liberated us in this phase. But we haven't worked it all out yet. We haven't really got comfortable with it yet, particularly people like me who came through it from a different generation. I have to tell you that I even struggle to do the simplest task sometimes as I communicate in this new way. But it's been liberating for the company and for people, and it's been a fantastic phase. And we've got to keep on going. We've got to learn the lessons and move on, and not go back the way, for sure.
So Alec, you talk about this idea of learning lessons and moving ahead. It does seem like the industry has really come together from a collaboration perspective. But if we also think about partnerships, Walgreens, and really I think the hallmark of so much of what you have done is around Kroger and other partnerships. So can you kind of look at both collaboration and partnerships, and where are we and where are we going?
Yeah, I think from a strategy point of view, our point of view for a period of time, 4 or 5 years, was this day was coming. We didn't expect it to happen this way, and it's pretty sad it's happened this way, but this day was coming where all of a sudden omnichannel was the new model in town. And when we thought about that, we thought, well, it's been driven by one massively innovative company in America and probably a couple of followers in China. And you and I, Deborah, have spoken about China a lot, because we share the same passion for learning from some of these platform companies in China about how they can really modernize retail. But you've got to give Amazon a lot of credit. They have completely transformed how customers shop, and there's just no getting away from that. And you've got to give Walmart a lot of credit, because at a point in time they realized that they had a problem, and they've been reacting to that problem, I think, in a positive way, and Target and many others you can mention. But the way that we viewed it was that we need scale, and we've got to be different. So if you think of a very simple logic of there's going to be 3 platforms, 3 marketplaces, whichever words you're comfortable with, are going to be important in the future, then one is formed called Amazon, the online marketplace. One is forming called Walmart, which is this hugely important big marketplace, 35% share, I think is the average for Walmart in the USA, more or less, in terms of category share. So what does the rest of us do if we can't match that scale? And of course, the Amazon model is a different model. They make money not from selling things, but they make money from cloud or from advertising, et cetera, innovative ways that they made money, alternative profit streams. So how do we grow, and how do we become important in this new world that's forming? So we thought of the logic of the mass specialist platform, where if we bring pharmacy and healthcare and some categories like skincare and cosmetics, which lead into beauty and elements of gifting. And if we join up with others on that platform, can we create the third platform, the mass specialist platform? And the most obvious example of that is the test work we're doing with Kroger, where food and pharmacy are the most frequently used shopping trips. So if you look across the platforms of the 3 I've mentioned, the household penetration of these 3 platforms is more or less the same. Walgreens together with Kroger would be slightly behind Amazon and Walmart, but still very, very big platform. It's the number of trips that people make to that platform for food and pharmacy, which we thought was the strong logic. Now again, getting a big partnership going with a very successful company like Kroger is not easy, but they are very clear. They want to become the specialists in food. They want to become the company that services America with food, and their values and their principles are very strong there. And we want to be America's most loved and most trusted pharmacy. That's what Walgreens wants to be. So we started to think about that partnership 2 years ago. We've got some tests in the ground. It's been interesting what's happened through the partnership. I go back to with Red Nose Day, it was 6 years in the making of this day. We're only 2 years with Kroger, so there's a long way still to go to figure it out. But the reaction of customers to being able to get their food and their pharmacy from a smaller store in a community setting in the roughly 50 locations where we have it has been very strong, and we're very pleased with what's happened. Then on the other side, if you like, the healthcare side, we've always believed that the doctor, the general practice doctor, is the quarterback of any healthcare system. They're the person the patient trusts. These are trusted relationships over many, many years. And therefore we decided, rightly or wrongly, that we wanted to create partnerships with doctors. And we went therefore to test with 3 different approaches. One was, through United Healthcare, initially through urgent care. We learned a ton. That's now moved on to primary care. We've done a partnership about 1.5 years ago with Humana, which is senior care. We're partners in primary care. And more recently, we've launched a number of tests with VillageMD, which is a standalone platform that looks after commercial, Medicaid and Medicare. We're still leaning towards Medicare. So again, we're working that out through both the physical and the platform to see what we can do there as well. And again, that's work that we're pleased with. And again, going forward, we think these are critical physical and digital partnerships, which will generate, again, different formats, we believe, for the corner drugstore in the future. But, partnerships are not straightforward. Partnerships take time. What's encouraging is customer behavior is changing as we've put these new, more unique offers, doctors, and well-curated, well-valued, healthy food, fresh food into our drugstores. So we're getting a really good customer reaction, but there's still a long way to go, to be honest, to pull that strategy off, because it's a very ambitious strategy. You think you can match the big two and become as important as the big two from where we are. We can't do by ourselves, but we can do with others who've got the same ambition for the customer.
It's really impressive.
So when you think about that, that final mile component, when you start to think about your partnerships and how you drive it home to customers with the online surge that's been there, how have you seen that evolve throughout this time frame, and how do you think it will maintain post-COVID?
Yeah, one of the more interesting things we've done in the last mile, again, it's interesting because it's fun but real, is the partnership with Wings, which is a Google company, who are the drone company. So in Virginia, we've been working with them. Gosh, I'm going to get this wrong. It's probably about 6 months, but it's not been long, but it's been long enough. And of course, so we're now delivering your painkillers. Or your Cheetos.
Why not?
There's a whole bunch of my partner suppliers on the line, I guess. So I apologise I haven't mentioned your brand. But we're delivering a catalogue. I think it's about 200 products and some care packages by drone to a neighbourhood in Virginia, and we can deliver that within the average delivery time is 5 minutes.
Wow.
From
That's
pressing
nice.
your app. I think it's 7, to be honest. Maybe 7. I'll check that number, but it's less than 10 minutes. So
Amazing.
Pretty sure I think it's 7. So we've been doing this, for six months. So that's to me, that's the ultimate always on model, and it's real. I think this will happen. I honestly think this will happen in the USA. I don't know if it will happen in 5 months or 5 years or 10 years. I really don't know, because that depends on regulation and customer demand. But it's a very popular service. I can assure you, and very reliable and very safe. So you do that one, then you go back to the real big relationship we have with FedEx, where you can hold at Walgreens products you get from other suppliers. other manufacturers. And that's been going for about 2 years, and the number of parcels has been on a really big increase all the way through. And what's been interesting is that through the crisis, the mix of pick up and drop off was 50-50. And through the crisis, I think it's moved to 80-20, 20 pick up and 80% drop off, because people are shopping a lot more online. But again, people don't always like the product they get. So the number of returns has also been increasing dramatically, as you'd expect. So the number of drop-offs into Walgreens through this model has been increasing dramatically. Another example of the last mile, because it's not just about pickup, it's also about drop-off. An easy way to return your easy returns, we think, is a big strategy that we're driving hard with FedEx and other partners in the supply chain. I have to say, Narvar is another great partner in that supply chain. A small but really nice team who've done a nice piece of work on being in that supply chain. Then you go back to the last mile was created by the Corners of America strategy, the physical locations of forward distribution hubs in a different era, and we still got these pharmacies. In fact, we've got a thousand plus more when we consolidated Red Aid into our estate to give us over 9,000, and we're building some small pharmacies, maybe European style. We have 40 or 50 of these small pharmacies, which are 250 square feet, but they've all got drive-throughs and pickup points. So can we get deeper into communities where we're not yet present in an appropriate way through a lower cost omni-channel model? That's going well also. So you think of the last mile and you think, okay, how do we use these forward distribution sites to hold the right product, to deliver in a flexible way to customers, not just for ourselves, but also for partners? So people like Levi Jeans, for example, they are with the partnership with FedEx and Narvar and with us, is one example. So if you want to buy your favorite Levi jeans, I don't think you'll be able to get into any of Levi's shops at the moment, but you can pick them up and drop them up at a Walgreens, for example. Right now, that happens right now. So again, the last mile we think is incredibly important to customers. We think we are advantaged. We haven't strung together yet all of the data, the technologies, in a way that is seamless and truly efficient, truly AI, truly empowered, in the way that Joanne described up front. But we're getting there, and we're doing it through partnership. The Microsoft partnership is incredibly important to us. We're in their cloud, many other people in their cloud. Microsoft's strategy is to make others stand tall in their sector. And they're working with us to make us stand tall and to make our partners stand tall in the last mile.
That's great. I'm going to quickly go through the poll questions. Number one, in what tech areas is your company investing? 64% said customer experience, 29% supply chain and logistics, and just 7% in AR and VR. Joanne, how does that kind of compare to what you would have expected?
It's not surprising to me. I'm very consistent with what we're seeing. Customer experience is at top of mind, especially as retailers are starting to open and what that experience for the customers is going to be. I think supply chain and logistics will continue to support that experience for them, but top of mind has been customer experience.
Okay, and then second question, as a retailer, are you narrowing assortments? And if so, by how much? 43% said minimally and 57% said moderately, and nobody said extensively, which is interesting. Alec, we've gotten a lot of questions on demand forecasting, assortment optimization. How are you thinking about kind of what's carried in your store right now? And, if you want to make sure that you're in stock for the customer when they come in, is there any interest in kind of narrowing the assortment or doing kind of more in the box that you currently have?
Yeah, well, I think we're taking the lead from the manufacturers. A lot of the manufacturers have had to narrow their assortment for at least a period of time to make sure the things that were really key to consumers were available, and they've done a nice job there. And I think broadly, the big manufacturers have been focusing more and more on their big brands in the last 5 or 10 years, with much success as well. So I think we're very much driven by what the customer wants to buy. And we really trust our partners to tell us what that is and to put it on the shelves. And that's no different during this period. partly driven by lack of supply, but also driven a lot by demand, where we've seen incredible shifts in demand. As you can imagine, I'll just give you some examples which are obvious, but they're worth noting. So, vitamin sales are still going extremely strongly, particularly for immunotherapy, immunity. And then you've got the other side of it, the cough and cold sector went really strong in early March, but it's tapered off because, at the end of the day, it really is, there's not much available yet to help you with the virus. You can protect yourself a lot from getting the virus, but there's not much available to take if you happen to have it, apart from, lowering your temperature with painkillers. That's one example. Another example would be hair colorants, where again, hair colorants have gone really big because people, are no longer going to beauty salons, and they want to look good on Zoom and on Microsoft Teams and FaceTime and all that stuff. So that's been another category that's exploded, and there's many other examples. Nail exploded for the same reasons. So again, there's been really a lot of shift. And the manufacturer had to deal with the same things that we've had to deal with in our warehouses, where, unfortunately, sometimes it becomes a hotbed or a potential hotbed for an outbreak, and therefore they've had to close it down, and the disruption's been real there as well. So I think it's been a really disruptive time for supply chains. But I have to say that I've been really, really impressed by the modern agility of supply chains from manufacturers. And I think they've been very fair in how they've allocated product for those retailers that are open as well. So we've had no complaints, and we've had great collaboration from people to try and make it work so we got the product to customers in the best way we could. And people, I think, have coped really well end to end. And well, there's been some price gouging by certain people and all that sort of stuff, but generally speaking, 99.9% of people in our end-to-end supply chain have done a fantastic job for America in this period of time, in my view. And again, I'm sure that some of the technologies that drive agility in technology, so we're moving from lean supply chains to agile supply chains. People have been investing ahead of that curve, I guess, and that's coming through. And it's certainly been a big help to retail that's been open.
That's great. Joanne, do you want to kick us off on Q&A?
Sure. So Alec, the first question is, what are the most critical aspects of customer delivery that all retailers must address?
I think they've got to make the stores safe and clean. There's a range of feelings out there about how the virus is, how dangerous the virus is, but most people think it's extremely dangerous and can be prevented by all of the CDC guidelines. So my recommendation is, we saw a great piece of work by Kroger. It was called the Blueprint. Now, we had our own internal blueprint, but Kroger actually made this blueprint available to all retailers. So I would suggest that if you've not got a blueprint of your own yet about how you keep your store safe, then please do. I'll give you an example from Red Nose Day, and again, it's a simple example, but it's a real one. We decided not to. We have a keypad where customers used to donate for Red Nose Day, and it was quite an easy process and raised quite a lot of money, because if you finish your transaction, do you want to give $1, $2, $3, $5, $100 or whatever to Red Nose Day? People pressed it and off they went. We decided not to switch that on because it was encouraging people to use the PIN pad too much. We wanted to minimize the use of the PIN pad to where it was absolutely necessary. So we made choices, deliberate choices, to keep our customers safe and our people safe, even though it affected, elements of our business model. But you have to do that, I think. If you open in an unsafe way, then you're not being fair to not unsafe, that's unfair. In a less safe way, then you're not being fair to your colleagues. So get that bit right. And people will remember that for a long time, I think. If you don't get it right, then it'll be a problem, I think, for your brand and your company. I think, secondly, really listen to your people. We have a Glint survey that we send out every week now, and we simply ask the difficult questions. Do you have enough PPE? How do you feel about how you're being supported by your company? So we ask 3 or 4 questions, and we track them every week. We copied this from Kroger, to be honest. We started it about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's great because we get real-time information about the morale and how people are feeling about being out there. And it's not great, by the way. Some of the responses we get are, you can imagine, are telling us, you're not doing all you can to help me or to pay me or whatever. So don't expect this to be a rosy picture. But stay really at temperature check in real time. Gives you a real sense of, are you doing enough to keep your people safe? So customers safe, people safe. And third, your supply chain is everything. If people come into your store and they can't get from you what they want, they're doing less trips, they're doing bigger baskets. So if you open and you don't have the things that people expect you to have, then you could lose them, not just for your reopening trip, but you could lose them forever if they find it somewhere else. So you've got to really focus on what's important to your customer in that trip they expect to get from you, and somehow get it on the shelf or have an alternative or whatever. That'll be my 3 bits of advice. That makes sense?
Yes.
We are seeing a lot of questions on last mile supply chain. I'll try and combine a few into one. Are you fulfilling online from store, only from DCs? How is drive-through pickup going? And do you see contactless in-store pickup important for the future?
Yes, so we are fulfilling mainly from our DC, because again, we didn't have a built-out, network yet to connect the online with the physical. We're in the process of doing that right now. We wasn't ready, but we have started to do about I think it's now 500 essential lines. Going back to this idea of what is it people really come to you for, and we picked our 500 essential lines, and we now pick that from the store. And we either send it home or we do it through the window, the drive-through window. The drive-through window has been very popular for that sort of process. And we're increasing the number of essential lines every week. I think we started with 100, and I think we're now at 500. So we pick from the store now, which we never did before. And we pick, the essential lines. Come back to that last point, the last question, but make sure it's stuff people expect to get from you. In terms of the last question, I missed the middle one, so I'll come back to the last question. I think when you read through the population, there's about 10% of people today who are genuinely concerned about the virus and won't come out. I think there's a pre-vaccine and a post-vaccine phase. That's how we're thinking about it. So in the pre-vaccine phase, if you listen to the experts, and we have a Dr. Kevin Banzer, our CMO, he's a great guy. He's keeping us up to date. Every single second day we get a conversation with Kevin in different ways. They know it's going to be a bit of a stall effect. There's going to be good times and bad times, hot spots and not hot spots. It's not going to be a straightforward road until we get a vaccine. And I think all retailers are going to be ready for that. So I think this idea of contactless pickup will stay because of that, and we'll go beyond that as well, because people's attitudes towards hygiene and disease will change forever. It's crazy in Illinois. You walk into every single store and everyone wears a mask. Everyone wears a mask. It's so different to where it was before. So I think there's the pre-piece, the post-piece, and some that will stick forever. So yeah. And sorry, Deborah, I missed the middle question. I think you asked 3 in a row. I saw it.
Yes, it was around drive-through and pickup.
We think that we've got the car park. So smaller, off the high street, the highway. They're in the flow of people's lives. So we think we've got to figure out drive-through. I call it drive-through 2.0. If drive-through 1.0 was pharmacy, drive-through 2.0 is everything else that's essential in people's lives that they can get from our supply chain. So thank you to Walmart for putting that big idea in people's minds. Well, we intend to ride in the back of it, but we've got to get there first. We've got to invest in our omnichannel. We've got a lot of work to do. We're not there yet. We've got to make it seamless and a better experience. But we have got better car parks, I think.
Definitely. I'll let Joanne take us home with one last question from the audience. And audience, thank you so much for the great questions.
Sure. Alec, there was one other question, just a little bit of an extension from what Deborah just asked about how are you thinking, since you have established the final mile and have a perspective and it's running efficiently, how are you thinking about your micro fulfillment strategy, or are you, for Walgreens?
We have to. It's a great question. I think any retailer that's not thinking about that question and how they can either do it themselves or partner with someone will have a problem in the future. And the future could be 2 years. Customers are used to getting things on demand, aren't they? The obvious example is Starbucks, but everyone use that example. But that's coming. I've said already that people can now get their drugs and their 200 key lines on demand through a Walgreens drive-through. It's a bit messy for us. It takes a lot more effort than it should, but we have to do it. And therefore, it's micro-fulfillment approaches, that it's going to be the unlock for us. And we got to figure out who's our partner and how we do it and how we get ahead of it. So we invest for maybe the next 10 years, because it'll change again. But when you're putting down capital, you got to make sure it lasts for a period of time. So I think it's a critical question, Joanne, that every single retailer has to have an answer to, I think.
Great. Well, Alec, thank you so much. Your insights were incredibly timely and helpful for all of us. Joanne, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Stay safe,
Thanks,
everyone.
Alec.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Jen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.